session. I guess it's not a meeting. Part 2 of the work session, we have some unfinished things to address here. First one is the ordinance number 14, third series, smoking. And we've had some discussion on this at council meetings, going back and forth. Hopefully figure out what we're going to do here. Question I have, Bill, on the second page, page 2 of the ordinance there, under jurisdiction, it says ordinance applies throughout the city of Painesville, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that would mean any place within, and then within 50 feet of the entrance, exits, open windows, and ventilation intakes of any public places or places of work, correct?
Correct.
But the question is whether or not we want to limit that to the C1 area? Is that one of our questions?
So the discussion points are things that came out of policies and procedures
Yep.
that we thought we should talk about.
I'm all up for shredding it.
I have heard from several downtown business owners that are in favor of this ordinance, maybe not necessarily at the 50 foot from their business entrances, but several of them had said, 25 feet of their entrances, they would support that.
I've talked to several business owners and people who said, is there anything better you can do with your guys' time? That actually helps.
I have to agree with Leonard that rules and regulations we're trying to dictate. We got a governor that's hung up on this already, and I don't think we need to dictate any further. And smokers have rights, believe it or not. And then they can no longer smoke in buildings, they want to smoke outside. I don't smoke, I used to, but it is a right, and I don't think we should be taking that away.
Neil, non-smokers have a right too. How do you declare that one has more right than the other?
Well, outside, the smoke is a lot more diverse than inside. And what's next? No bonfires in town. We already heard some of that talk. I mean, it's endless.
Part of the reason this came up initially was because with the new COVID-19 regulations, there are certain businesses that are not allowed to have recirculating air in their business and need to have windows open for fresh air coming in. And they would like to be able to provide their employees and their customers with clean air.
And it's kind of been addressed. I think last time we talked, Lenny said he drives by how many times a day, and I drive around a lot. The smokers are going to the end of the building. They're not blowing it in the window from what I ever seen. Has anybody seen them blow smoke in the window?
I've not, I've only seen them down around the corner there.
And that's where they're supposed to be smoking.
Do you drive down there, do you sit down there all day?
No, but I drive around town a lot.
So basically what you're doing right now is calling these downtown business owners liars.
I wouldn't say they're,
That's what you're saying, Neil. You're saying.
I'd say they're
that because-
profiling.
Well, yeah, it's, okay, yeah.
it's blowing, it's making a molehill out of an ant.
And then you got a problem that if people are on the public property that they're paying for with their taxes on the sidewalk.
The ordinance says right here that it's based on the Minnesota Clean Indoor Air Act, which gives the city the right to pass an ordinance like this on public sidewalks.
So we're gonna pass another ordinance we can't enforce.
There you are.
That's- My biggest concerns are the distances, and 50 is not, that, to me, that's not reasonable. Enforcement is going to be my next main issue or concern for dealing with this, is that how are you going to enforce this, chief?
And what's the price of a ticket?
Whatever you guys set it at.
And is it a matter of you know, if someone is slowly walking down the street, do they have to be walking a certain speed to prove that they're passing through, or that they're not just loitering? You know, the enforcement to me is I can understand, the concern of the business owners down there too, but enforcing it, we're still gonna run into problems, I think.
I think the big thing we would look at from the police department side is, one, we would start with education. With people, if we see large groups of people standing around, potentially in violation if they're smoking or otherwise. And then as far as violations go, it would probably be a lot complaint-based, but at the same time, it would be seeing those same large groups. You see a huddle of people standing, in violation there, and they're smoking, probably addressing it in that fashion. The individual person who may or may not be walking down the sidewalk, no, that's gonna be impossible, to enforce that.
But these types of ordinances, I mean, it's not like, we're not the only jurisdiction where this kind of ordinance has been considered or adopted. These ordinances are county-wide in the 7-county mosquito control district. I mean, it's not, enforcement of these kinds of things is always troublesome. It's like, curfew issues for minors and all kinds of ordinances that we have on the books. I mean, if you were gonna worry about the nitty-gritty of enforcement, we wouldn't have any ordinances, honestly. I mean, it's always problematic to enforce ordinances. It's not a pleasant job. The police department does the best they can, and, it's always a picky thing. But, we wouldn't be in a unique circumstance if we had this ordinance. I'm not for it or against it, and I understand the concerns, but to get hung up on the enforcement issue that's just silly. I mean, that's a general problem with any regulation that city, state, or federal government has. I mean, it's just the reality of it.
But we're still gonna tie up police time that I believe can be used for better purposes.
Question in regards to the place of residence not included, where, there are a handful of buildings downtown where there are residences above, and the entrance to the residence is down on the street level, and say it's 25 feet or something, but it's 20 feet to the next business's door. Would they be prohibited from smoking in front of their own entrance to their residence?
I would say the way it's written, yes.
Okay.
And maybe that's something that's best, I don't know, I mean, you could make an exception for that, I suppose, say if you reside, and maybe that's something that's best left between the tenant and their landlord. Typically, the owner of the building, if they don't want to allow smoking, they are going to have to deal with that in their lease, I guess. If
Yeah,
you
but
make that exception.
But I'm thinking of the next door business. If the owner of the apartment upstairs is okay with it, but it's within 25 feet of the next business's door.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how often that would come into play. I guess I'd have to go downtown with a tape measure and see. I'm guessing 25 feet is a little tight, but maybe that happens here and there. I'm not sure.
Mr. Mayor, would you accept a comment from the public?
Sure, as long as you made the effort to come all the way here.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you letting me speak. I'm here primarily for this subject, although I'm always interested in all of the city ongoings. But I just want to point out that if I own property in C1, which I do, and if it's within 25 feet of another business, which it is, you're saying that I can't stand on my own property and have a cigarette.
Correct.
And that's a problem. So I just want to encourage you to I would ask the council politely just to consider the fact that this is not, don't lose sight of the rights of all the people that you're taking away to address one issue with sober housing people, smoking in front of businesses in C1. I just encourage you to think about all the people's rights that you're going to affect by trying to address an issue that I would agree with Mr. Hertzberg has already been taken care of. These folks are gonna be smoking and do smoke on my property. Well, it'll be my property tomorrow at 3:30.
Tomorrow, okay, well,
Yeah, tomorrow at
congratulations.
3:30.
We'll be down for the ribbon cutting. and
So and again, I appreciate you allowing me to speak, and I'll shut up now.
But, you know, on private property, they could still do that. They
And
could
you're
still smoke.
okay with them doing that on your property?
Absolutely. Zero issue.
You know,
You know,
like,
it's-
you know, the open spot over here across, you know, between the eye clinic and there, that's private property, they could smoke, but if they step on the sidewalk, they could not. That's the way that this would be interpreted, correct?
The sidewalk isn't totally owned by the city though,
Yes, it is.
totally, from the building.
I think so.
Yeah.
Majority of buildings are right on the property line.
Yep.
This is the same, the people that live at the hotel. Where can they legally smoke without walking about 3 blocks?
Behind the
Behind
hotel.
their building.
This would
Where
pass.
they park?
Okay, it's just the entrance, not behind the building.
I think the way this is written now, it would apply to the back door.
The alley too,
as
then.
well. Yeah.
The alley also.
I think that's why we talked about one of the things being the, where is it?
Main entrance,
The main entrance only, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I'm real concerned with if we go with the smoking ordinance, next is gonna be the campfires. And it never ends.
Well, there's no room for those downtown.
No, but there are people that don't want anybody in town to be able to have.
Yeah, but we're addressing the smoking ordinance now.
Well, I'm saying smoke is smoke.
Sean, you started to say,
well, and I'll just start by saying it's good everyone's sitting down, but I agree with Bill.
which one?
It happens, okay.
We got 3 of them here.
I agree with Mr. Fuchs. I'm in favor of these things for like the mall in St. Cloud. You know, where you have large numbers of people coming in and it's a privately owned entity and they want to say no smoking within 50 feet. Okay. But in our downtown where we have so many people who live in those apartments, some of those buildings are owned by those who run the business, some are not. I don't know that we can craft enough exceptions to make this fit the intended goal while not discriminating against others.
Are there any of those places downtown that don't have a second entrance out the back? Like the apartments downtown?
They all should have.
Okay, so that's where, if we said that this applied to the main entrance and the public sidewalks, then people who owned those apartments or lived in those apartments would have the ability to go out the back door and smoke on private property.
I do not have back doors to those apartments. To my Delta, nobody exists up front.
And the other thing, there was a bowling alley said that there's no way his bowlers can go outside and have a cigarette in between games. Which they do, because otherwise you'd have to walk out in the middle of, well, it depends how this is out in the middle of the street, actually. And there you got a business that's been shut down and is just trying to stay alive, and now you're gonna put another impedance on him. It's just one.
I think our letter, there was the threat of a petition, and I guess we know how many businesses and business owners there are in town. I guess if a petition comes with the majority, we can relook at this.
I look at it, it's hard enough to find an employee anyway, that if they wanna walk around the corner and have a cigarette, if they come to work, come on in.
Ron, how many trash cans do we have downtown?
6.
And they're all kind of older, maybe? The point I'm getting at is, what would it look like if we got newer trash cans that had ashtrays on the top or something like that? Would that be a better way of addressing this? Because that would solve some of the butt problem, you know, with the cigarette butts being thrown into garden beds and things.
It would, well, people would have to use them.
Is the fire chief here? Would that be a potential for trash can fires?
Probably no greater than you got right now.
And then we would also have to have, like, pay somebody to go clean those out.
Well, they get dumped every week, twice a week in the summer, huh?
I'm leaning towards not supporting this in any fashion. It's just, like Sean said, too many things here to try and please everybody to craft it into something that's going to be enforceable, palatable, and functional.
And I'll admit, there's more support for this than I thought when we first dealt with it, but I don't know how we make it work. I'd rather find an alternative to solve the problem that smoking downtown creates, rather than just trying to ban it altogether.
And we got another business that's potentially opening that would have smokers too. That would be potentially negatively affected. I certainly wouldn't support 50 feet. 25 might be stretching it.
I recommend we let it die for lack of a motion.
Well, there's not.
Well, or we aren't voting here.
No.
I recommend we move on to B.
Okay, we have consensus. On to item B, downtown safety.
Chief, is this more of a perception issue?
I think so. I mean, we haven't had calls on it. You know, I think there's a perception based on some of the groups that hang out downtown, what may or may not be happening. But beyond that, we haven't had any real issues.
Is it possible it comes from being short-staffed for such a while too, that, you know, you can't circulate, keep, more of a presence in the downtown?
You know, I don't think so. I think it, just from the things that I've heard, and heard discussed here about what the perceived issues are, it's more about the people that are there. We can beat around the bush, but it's directly related to the recovery center downtown. Well, most of the folks who are downtown, at the recovery center, a good chunk of them have tattoos, they have unique hairstyles, they have, unique style just in general, and I think it's different. And I think there's a perception because of that difference that, maybe things aren't safe. So, what I've seen on patrol out there, when they're having their groups, occasionally they're sitting outside, hanging over on Bill's soon-to-be property, smoking, and it just gives a perception that things aren't, for lack of a better term, that they're just, something's not right because they don't look like me. But that's just what I see.
And that's human nature. And back in the day when I was a hardcore Harley rider, I had ladies lock their cars when I'd pull up and they would side them.
I still wouldn't blame them.
No.
There's some that still do. They know me though.
Yeah, and speaking of the other business that's potentially opening there too, the bars tend to gravitate some people that are gonna hang around also. So it's not just the recovery people, it's people that, are out for whatever reason.
But we haven't haven't seen any crime downtown to speak of.
We have very little crime downtown.
And I think a lot of it's perception too. Didn't we get that when this first started, the recovery people, that there were sex addicts and, ooh, we can't bring the young kids to the library because the town's full of sex addicts. And that perception isn't really true neither. But it's out there.
Just,
Are there some things we can do that are not ordinance related or whatever that maybe we haven't been doing? Or any ideas?
I was just thinking it'd be great, but for COVID, if we worked with May and did a big blocked off downtown street there and had a cookout or something.
Yeah.
Have
well, a lot of people don't know everything they do, like the flowers downtown.
Yeah.
In the corner, by the plaza in the corner, by the corner drug. My company put all those flowers in there, but May called us up and she planted them and did that whole thing, and they weed them 2 corners all the time. And all the stuff they put in there, that was all theirs.
Yeah. Her folks do a
They do
lot for
of
our
stuff.
community.
Ask them. There's nothing wrong with them. I hate these conversations.
I mean, part of their agenda is community projects.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, yeah, I agree, Len, there's nothing wrong, we shouldn't have it, but the results of the library survey show there is a concern because of perception. That's why I thought maybe if there's a way to sort of showcase the things that those folks do, that might help that perception issue.
Well, I think that's kind of a catch-22 because May has said that she just wants the people to do that.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily want the recognition. So because that's part of their recovery process, is to be, contributors.
Maybe it's like offering a Minnesotan money, you just have to shove it in their hand 3 times until they take it.
Maybe it'd be a good piece for Ellery to write something in the press about perceptions. I don't know who would approach her, but, well, she's very good at writing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, especially her.
That'd be a job for the mayor to talk to her.
Got nothing else to do?
Well, I mean, it's about perceptions and profiling and
Well, and
not
this
being
kind of
acceptable to,
ties in with item C too, is that, whether or not it's, how the police officers are, what's the word I want to say, perceived, community engagement, how they're relating with members of the community, how other segments of the community are relating with everybody else. Maybe we need Nights to Unite every month or something.
Outside of COVID.
Are we
Yeah.
on C now? Do we jump to C?
Well, then, I think they're kind of related.
Well, if we're gonna jump to C, I had something it would be really nice for part of the community engagement if you guys would walk around. Like they used to back in the day, walk around up and down the streets, say hi to some of the business owners, mill around. I don't know,
And we try. I mean, with the 2 new guys, that was the goal, but unfortunately with COVID, pretty
Right.
much shut all of that.
that would be
down.
something to involve the community a little bit more, is just kind of, you don't have to have any event because people will go to the events, but walking around, saying hi, that goes farther for me than going to an event.
We spent some time down at the beach over the weekend. It was hopping down there.
Yeah, stuff like that is, to me, is worth more of the community than having an event.
and I think that's a little bit perception too. If people would see the police walking the downtown streets, the perception of, ooh, downtown is so dangerous.
No.
But you can have that go the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can say, well,
Yeah, you got a
they can
police
say they're walking
presence.
downtown because There's a problem down here.
Yeah, we're not going downtown, there's cops there. Something must be happening.
You know, I agree, not a lot of people show up at events, you know, all the time, you know, people who are interested in those are the people that show up. But to deal with the specific perception here, that's, other than, you know, as much as May doesn't want to, maybe those things need to be publicized a little bit more. You know, things need to be out there just a little bit more so that people can kind of see and understand, you know, what's there. Because the only way that fear is gonna go away is changing the perception. As long as you perceive something, that fear is always gonna be there.
The community engagement was also stemmed from a policies discussion where one of the ideas going around social media in light of George Floyd is requiring officers to live in the community. And with a department our size, that's not possible. For one, we'd have to annex the chief's house.
Yeah. Is that a motion?
All he's got to do he only has to ask.
Yeah, all you gotta do is ask, Paul.
Yeah, and I know that that's been a topic of discussion, especially in the metro area
Yeah.
for several years, and there's constitutional issues there too, and, you know, if you're gonna require someone to live in Minneapolis, or if you're at Columbia Heights and they're a cop there, and then they get a job in Minneapolis, do they have to move?
Right.
You know, and is, you know, the city gonna pay for moving expenses and loss of maybe, you know, value on a house or whatever, so,
Yeah, but one of the things we threw around is if not living here, then incentivizing some form of community service and what we might be able to do. An idea that I threw out, and we were sort of debating whether or not it would be possible, is if an officer did so many hours of community service, then they could be put into sort of like a drawing for so many chamber bucks, if the chamber would be willing to put something like that in. But there's an issue with whether or not that counts as compensation and other questions.
yeah.
Other than the chief, the rest of the officers, most of them live here in town, don't they?
Everybody, well, all the full-timers do.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a part-timer, you know, SRO in Wilmer. And then, Steve's out in same subdivision I'm in.
Yeah.
But other than that, yes, you know, we've got one officer, new officer that just, purchased a home, to rent, and then there's another one that owns her own home. So, pretty much everyone for the PD right now is in the area. And with our response time, that we do have in place, which we can put in there, for the most part, it really encourages people to live here, because nobody wants to start taking call at, say, 3 a.m. if we have call time at 3, and be sitting in the back office for 4 hours, getting paid $2 an hour to be on call.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what has to happen if you're outside of 15 minutes, which pretty much puts you in Painesville Township for our response time, so.
You know, the idea of, you know, blocking off a street and having a barbecue and chips and beans or something like that, or hot dogs has been talked about. And there are communities that do that on a regular basis, where they'll block off, you know, a couple blocks and just set tables along. We did that a few years ago. Did the chamber do that? I forget who sponsored that, or it was the downtown group or something used to do that on James Street.
For me, my 2 cents worth on that is, you know, and I know with COVID it's hard, but I think it would, you know, it'd be more than serving beans and chips. I think if, you know, we've had so many new officers and people in the industrial park and downtown business people, they don't even know who they are anymore. And I think, you know, it'd be great if, you know, they could be introduced to people on a personal basis, stopping in at businesses. But I know it's hard right now, but it just, I think it's something that needs to happen. It's a small town. People should know the law enforcement officers, feel comfortable with them. And I think right now, I think they don't know very many of them. They probably know the chief, and that might be about it. other than the old timers that are filling in.
They know Steve and they know Jerome.
Yeah.
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 You know, and that's, you know, obviously we're trying to change, you know, how we got stuff out there, especially with the two new guys. You know, that's why we did the, you know, we kind of worked with the school and got them to do a little piece with them on their Talk of Painesville podcast here a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, traditionally, the goal is to get them out there on foot. It's just,
Yeah. Oh, I know, it's hard right now, but I think, you know, just can't lose sight of it, I think, when, you know, and it's not that you can't, you can go places, but some places are more open than others. I think you have to gauge that, but I think when times allow it, it needs to be done, because it gets away from you. Pretty soon, they've been here 2.5 years, and then they, you know, they're like, it feels awkward to do it, but I think you don't want to let it get away. Got to do it.
I wonder if building those relationships with some of those newer guys and the business owners in town also would maybe keep them here a little bit longer if they felt a little more connected to the community. Just a thought.
I encourage them to get out when they can. And both of them are gonna be, you know, for the rest of, well, once they're done with their field training. And right now, it's tough. I mean, right now, they're on night shifts, so we're working the night shifts, and you don't get a lot of downtown businesses open right now. So, you know, once we hit kind of August, you know, late this summer, they'll both be back on their own. And they're gonna be working a lot of day shifts, so there'll be, you know, direction to get out. Hopefully by, you know, mid-August, we're gonna see things open maybe just a little bit more, and so we'll see a lot of those businesses open so they can get out and talk to them, introduce themselves.
But I mean, as far as like a cookout or something, I don't know if that would be the council's responsibility or the city government's responsibility. I mean, the Night to Unite is a great thing, but beyond that, I feel like maybe that'd be, community engagement wise, probably better left to other people in the community, in my opinion. I don't know.
Why not us?
I don't know that would be the city government's responsibility. I mean, we do the police officers do the Night to Unite, and they do a lot of fundraising for that. But as far as, I mean, if you're just talking about blocking off downtown and serving beans and hot dogs for the, you know, people to get to know other people and change perceptions, I feel like the majority of the people who would come to something like that are probably the ones who don't have those perceptions to begin with.
And I think that's true too.
One could also argue that the five of us could do with some more accessibility and visibility. You know, if that's something that's been talked about in the past, is making sure that people have our phone numbers, maybe get some set hours, know that we are accessible to the public. And if we're gonna work on that with the police department, we could do that as a council as well.
Yeah, have a meet and greet.
Yeah. An all city meet and greet.
It wouldn't have to be a full-fledged picnic. You could have coffee and donuts, or keep it simple.
I was gonna say, I would encourage it across the board with the city.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we've got multiple different layers in the city, between city hall staff, public works, fire department, police department, you know, liquor store. I mean, granted, most people know the people at the liquor store, but, so I think Bill's okay. But, you know, some type of community engagement that way, you know, as an entire city might get some people out.
Well, Public Works has got a head start on us, because they're, everybody sees them out and about. Flushing hydrants, digging holes, filling holes, patching holes. Yeah, there's a few things that can be done. You still planning on a Night to Unite?
I don't think the decision's been made on that yet. At some point, here we'll have to talk to Dudon and see, where we're at, and if, you know, the nice thing is we can do that pretty quick. My biggest concern right now is, you know, our main draw at that event, but, you know, besides the inflatables from the National Guard, is traditionally the food.
The food.
And I'm not quite sure whether or not that's a good idea. There's been some discussion, I know a lot of the Night 2 night's been pushed out into October. I'm not interested in having a picnic in October. Just gonna put that out there, might be able to do something at the school. But with the construction going on at the school, I don't know that that's necessarily gonna be a good idea. So, you know, a lot of our stuff this summer has been kind of pushed to the side, so we haven't decided yet, but we can get that thrown together in a couple weeks, so it's not, you know, we've got a little bit of time yet.
Yeah, it is an event that does draw some people out, and, you know, typically it's a lot of the same ones, but you pick up some new ones, and if you have stuff for the kids, that's kind of the catch there. If the kids want to go, the parents might be more inclined to.
Would that be something to throw the, meet and greet with the city will be at the night night?
Yeah.
Huh?
I mean, I think that's how we bill it for the police department is, you know, come out and get to meet the guys. You know, I try and,
So could you throw
everybody's
a
in.
council There, or something with them, not to take any of your,
Oh, we put the event on for the community. I mean, we're there so that people can come see us. They can come and meet us, they can get to know us, talk to us, but it's really more about community than it is about the police department. You know, we're doing this to give back to the community and try and treat the residents to something fun. So, I mean, it's for everybody. And I think it's a perfect opportunity for everybody else too, so.
That's usually in conjunction with the National Night Out, right? And kind of the idea behind that was that neighborhoods getting together and like meeting your neighbors and spending time to get to know them, so.
Correct. When that program first came out, it really started, and you see it in a lot of larger communities. You see a lot of block parties. Get out, get to know your neighbors. Why? Because when you get to know your neighbors and you have those conversations with them, you get to know what's normal, what's not normal in your neighborhood. It helps you to watch when your neighbors are gone, when they see a vehicle pull up or something like that that's not normal. Your neighbors know because they've communicated that with you. For a town our size, it really works out well just doing one big community type event, because you can get, you know, we're so small that block parties they just don't seem to work, you know, in a town this size. So that's why, you know, we've gone and adopted the community picnic side of things, but it really is just about getting out and getting to talk to people. It's probably a good place actually for the recovery center as well. You know, that would be a good opportunity for them, you know, to be there just in whatever capacity to, you know, have people interact and engage with them. You don't even have to put a sign up and be like, hey, we're the recovery center. It's just being there, you know. And that goes a long way to changing perception, just sitting down and talking to somebody.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see how that goes. If anybody else has any great ideas can be done
Real quick, what are your thoughts
on,
on the community picnic? Anyone got thoughts on that?
I think that given the current events in our nation, I feel like this year it's probably more important than ever.
I mean, I was really hoping to bill ours as like a night 2 reunite, seeing most people have been locked up for 3 months. Good opportunity to get people out, opportunity to get them out and about. It's just that food component. And if anybody's got any ideas on other things we can maybe look at or ways to adjust it.
well, you know, and I don't know, you know, it's more expensive too if you do prepackaged type stuff. You know, if the, you know, the buffet type thing is still not really recommended or suggested, there might be other alternatives, but
You just hand out dilly bars.
dilly bars, you're back to the old ice cream days.
We're gonna get a lot more people in just town if we do that. Stan.
Yeah,
I mean, we could look at a prepackaged type thing, I suppose. You know, where you got a to-go box and you're handing everybody a to-go box. If it's being prepared, you know, with gloves and masks and everything else, it's a little less personal, but
yeah.
I mean,
something.
They're doing a ton of that down in Minneapolis still. People lining up miles long and handing out food. Some of it's grilled. So I mean, I feel like there might be space to do that still.
So the big question would be, and maybe we don't need this if we're making an entire community, you know, like an entire city type event, but, you know, traditionally the Lions are, you know, a big supporter. We partnered together with you guys on that for, you know, the service. Is that something that, you know, we think they'd want to do, or do we simply look at it as maybe we look at city staff just doing it? Because we're going to be bringing more people in from the city side, and we'll have more personnel to do it.
Well, we'll have to talk to president of the Lions Club for 2 more days.
Yeah. I don't think, it doesn't take that many people
No.
to do it. I don't think we'd have a problem getting enough volunteers from the Lions Club. I mean, I think if we had, it seems like in the past we've had like maybe 8.
Yeah.
I would say, I don't think it takes more than that. I mean, if it's, you know, if it really becomes a way huger event, I'd be surprised if it would. I don't think you're gonna change the number of people that show up by if you call it the night to unite, or if you call it the night to unite and meet your council members. I don't think it's gonna dramatically.
I'd probably get less there.
Yeah, it might get less, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would dramatically change the number of people that show up, so I think it'd be easily doable.
Do a dunk tank with the council?
Pardon me?
I said a dunk tank with the council.
Or the chief.
Well, then it might get big.
Not in October.
It's okay, I'll go first.
Yeah.
You can dunk me first. A heated one. No, and I'm just looking for ideas. I mean, we're always looking for new ways to keep things fresh, to keep people coming out for it, and this year's gonna be an interesting year.
I don't know, to me, the food handling, I don't think is an issue because, as Lions, we've done that, hamburger stand, we go through the training and we do with the.
Food handling licenses are probably still good.
No, yeah, I don't think so. They're only for 10 days, I think.
Okay.
But this would be, through the department, so that's fine. But, we know the drill for food handling, and it's just, the hot dogs and beans and chips and pop. It's, it's the, you might have to change some things, can't have just people grabbing, into the, in getting their own sodas or that type of thing, but, yeah.
Okay.
And we had a discussion at one of the public safety meetings. We have the ID machine to make IDs now, that if we had that available for parents to get IDs made of their children, that's always and you can have a thumbprint put on them, I believe, for missing children. That's always a good. Our city did that.
Yeah.
Or having the microchips, have the Bridgewater, if they, with COVID, I don't know if that would work, but
Yeah.
have them come down and microchip pets at a discount rate. That brings a lot of people in.
I think those may end up, one or two things I think are gonna have to happen. I mean, we're gonna have to probably tailor back what we have done, activity-wise this year with COVID. And maybe just go with the meal if we're gonna leave it in August. If we're gonna say push it out and shoot for October, try and find an indoor site, somewhere, whether it's the elementary school or, maybe the ice arena, if there's no ice in that yet. Something like that up there, inside versus,
You'll know a lot more in August depending what the school's going to do. And so you could probably shoot for the mid-September, which is usually pretty nice evenings.
Yeah.
And like you said, you can get it going pretty fast. By the time mid-August comes, everybody's gonna know what's gonna happen. So it's,
and I'm not married, to the date that they do for night to night. We've done it outside of that before. We do it under that umbrella, but we do it what's best for us as a community. So doing it in September, if everyone else is doing it in October, makes no difference to me. So.
Anything else on B and C? Okay, item D, Shopko building.
Well, Thank you. One of the owners of the Steel Turkey, he had contacted me and felt that this was supposed to be a negotiation, not just a yes and no from the council. After that, I think I talked to the mayor and it went to the property negotiations, which that meeting really didn't produce very much, but it, I think we had decided we would bring it back here, make sure we have some direction. Leo is looking for something. If it's a no, well, then so let it be, but he felt it should have been a negotiation, not a yes, no.
Yeah, he talked to me today too, and, and I told him it was no, and he asked, why didn't you counter? And I said, well, basically because of the, economic conditions and the way that, the council had discussed, but, he's a negotiator, and, well, they both are, or whoever else is involved in there too. So, all I know is that these past few weeks, we could have used a bigger city hall.
My opinion remains the same. I think it's a great opportunity, and I think, it would, basically the liquor store could pay for it, and then we could decide down the road what else we want to put in there. It doesn't have to all be done at once.
Bill had another accident. Pallet tipping over.
Pass the pictures.
Oh, you got pictures? Oh.
This is what happens when you stack beer besides we have to. There's 3 pictures there. One was last summer and the other one was last Friday while we were on vacation.
And this is your emergency exit, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So did product get destroyed?
Very much, yeah, we lost 30 cases in the one. This last one, we lost 1.
How many?
So,
Oh, it's only PBR.
Oh, no, you can see the
You just
graphics
can't.
on the other end.
Oh,
it just can't stack that high.
There's nowhere else to put it,
There's
though.
nowhere else to go.
Well,
yeah.
I know. So what's the alternative? It can't buy in a big volume or?
I need 2,500 cases to get through this weekend.
So this, we kind of talked our last meeting about our buildings and trying to come up with some priorities. And I looked at it further after our meeting, and I came up with 3 number 1s. And I'm smart enough to know we can't do all 3 at the same time. But liquor store, public works, and library are our top 3, and I think that'd probably be agreed upon by everybody. And of those 3, maybe the liquor store, you said you can get another, 3-year lease
Yeah, 3
for
years.
the same amount of money,
Yep.
but we're out of space that we can't hardly operate. I don't know if we can stay there 3 years.
That's going to be the smallest lease you're going to find is a 3-year. Leo wants to go longer, at minimum 10 would be great, but it's a lot more money for a bigger space too, to rent.
It just doesn't make sense to me to keep renting when we have an opportunity to buy for basically the same price that we would be renting for.
And the deals that you have to buy to get the price, well, that's my job, is to try and figure out the best way to make a buck. I just made us an extra $1,200 by buying the Windsor deal I did. So you got to do those, and in the summertime, White Claw, there's so many different flavors of stuff now that there never used to be. White Claw just went to 120 cases to be competitive. And that's just White Claw, and that's not even the best seller. And we're making it work, it's just we're gonna have accidents when they have to stack as high as we do.
No, I suppose insurance, but we have a deductible.
Yeah, it wouldn't cover
It's
it.
just a loss, right off the top.
And this only happens at 5 o'clock on a Friday night.
And
When it's your busiest time.
I think.
Thursday's a delivery day, right?
Thursday's delivery day. You know, and those guys, they're great about staff. I mean, they're doing the best they can, the delivery guys, because they're rotating and they're moving. They're doing the best they can too.
I think it's really fortunate that nobody's been hurt with these accidents and
They're,
even the getting things down when they're stacked that high. I mean, there's real potential for somebody to be injured.
and it's a good problem to have. I mean, thank God we're that busy, you know, so I'm very thankful. And right now, we're about 225,000 above last year. But we all know that's COVID driven. And I wish I had a crystal ball to say this is what it's gonna be like next year. I don't see people going totally away from their habits that they're doing right now, unless things change as they go. But
You said it has slowed down some.
we're only 25% up this month compared to 33.
But one of these accidents was last year prior to COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The deal is to get, there, 300 cases of Budweiser. That's the minimum to get the best price. Busch Light is 98. I'm buying 3 to 5 pallets a week. Right now, they're out of it.
How long does it take you to sell 300 cases?
Depends on the weekend. I'll sell 300. It's on Saturday this year. I could sell 500. So I'm going to order, if I'm allowed, 5 to 6 pallets of just Busch Light. And I'm going to order, and last year Coors Light was number 2, that was 238. They come 104 a pallet, so I need 3 pallets just of Coors Light. That doesn't include the White Claws, the Trulies, all the other, there's just so many components anymore, because it's the latest and greatest, My friend that built a 5,500 square foot store up in Bagley has outgrown his store in 5 years. He wished he would have done 7. I don't know. That was their decision. They're looking to add now.
I'll say we buy Shopko. And we still have to, Leo wants, he was at 550. Well, if he's willing to negotiate, we can we can go 450 or 400 or whatever. I mean, we can come with an alternative. What's it gonna cost us to
Reasonable price.
remodel to do the liquor store?
Yeah,
Is that another 500?
What was that?
I was thinking something like 350 might be a more reasonable price.
Yeah.
and that'd be a Chuck question on square footage remodel.
I don't think that was numbers.
Yeah.
See, the whole thing, the price of the building,
I have them with me.
the price of the building isn't even a factor. It's such a small, it's like 25%, about 25% of what it's gonna cost you to get in that building. And what everybody's forgetting about is, oh yeah, we only have to do this. Now you own the building. Now you have to fix the roof. Now you have to fix the air conditioner. Now you have to fix the heater. And you lost all the tax revenue off that building if somebody else buys it. That has to be factored into the equation somewhere.
One of the things that I'd consider too is, marketing this building.
One of the other things that they had suggested in the initial offer involved that unusable portion of land, do you remember the details of that? They wanted to basically have the city vacate a portion of that property and then they were gonna build.
Between Teals and
Yep.
Shopko. And
Yeah.
They want Teals to give up their rights to part of that.
Yeah, and then they were talking about building a smaller, like a 2-office strip mall or something. So that, from the tax revenue standpoint, that would probably make up for,
2 little office buildings gonna pay the same amount as the taxes on the Shopko building?
It's a start.
And I don't know if it's just gonna be 2 in this strip mall.
Yeah.
Well, and part of the reason for that development was, as I recall the conversation, we were told that there was like a childcare center and a restaurant or some other businesses ready to move into Shopko if we didn't buy it. And the strip mall would be the place to put those businesses. Well, I don't know that those businesses are out there. Or maybe COVID.
I think it's the old salesman trick.
Well, the whole thing
You
is
don't
that
buy
this
this part of the
building,
thing, I got two coming
this building's
along.
not even really supposed to be for sale anymore. We had 2 weeks to buy this building,
Yep.
a month and a half ago, otherwise somebody else bought it and it's gone.
Right, right.
And now we're talking about it's for sale, and we're supposed to negotiate.
That's why I don't think we come in even close to 500.
So there was
It's
a
just
lot
one of those
of
things.
talk about nothing.
It's one of those things, it's,
Yeah, maybe part of it is to offer this building and that other, you know, the strip and come up with a cash difference that they owe us.
I think this building saves for the library. I still hate the idea of moving the library out there, especially next to the liquor store.
Yeah, I know that is a concern.
It didn't actually seem to be a huge concern. on
Not for
library
the, not for
board.
the library
And the
group.
survey, yeah, like they didn't, based on the survey, the location really didn't seem to make a huge impact one way or another.
see,
But this, moving the library to this building, for what it would cost, we wouldn't really be gaining a whole ton of square foot wise, you know, and so,
It doesn't meet the library's demands.
no, I think it only gains them a little over 1,000 square feet.
Well, for all of me, they can stay where they are, but that's just me. I think liquor stores are number one concern right now. What about building a new one on the land we own by Subway? And then bond it and be done. Build it right.
Yeah.
By McDonald's?
Or be McDonald's, yes.
Oh, okay.
Couldn't find a better location.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, the,
Los Teals is a good location,
Well, it is, but,
right down from the hotel.
Chuck, do you have an estimate of the difference, like what it costs to build new per square foot versus
I have a
remodeling
sheet that
something?
he came up with.
Okay,
Option one was remodeling 6,000 square foot of the Shopko building for the liquor store. At $100 per square foot is $600,000. That's not the purchase of the building, that's just remodel. Option two, constructing a new liquor store. Building construction, 6,000 square foot at $280 per square foot is $1.68 million. Land cost, 20,000 square foot at $5 per square foot is $100,000, so $1.78 million to build new versus $600,000 plus the purchase of whatever portion of the Shopko building or liquor store.
Chuck, did that include the cooler? 600,000?
That was the space.
Just a space, just a space.
What does a cooler run?
I have a company I can get a box from, I just gotta buy the doors, we just need to know what size, they can't search until I tell them what we're looking at. A brand new one, you're looking at 150,000.
Okay.
But I can get used boxes. And then we just buy the doors, we could fit it to what.
but there again, Neil, that's where it makes the most sense to purchase a building and invest the money into remodeling, because you're, in the long run, the cost of the building and the build out for the liquor store is going to be less than what it would be to build brand new liquor store. And then you still have all that other space to utilize in some way, shape, or form.
Did Brad look at the building? Thought he was going to. Do you know?
I don't know if he did or not.
Really couldn't say.
'Cause I think he was out there one time with Leo early on in the process, but
well, yeah, because I'd be concerned about all the utilities, the AC, the furnace, the roof.
Yeah.
My AC went on in my building last week, and I had to put a new one in. Mine's a little tiny one compared to the building over there.
on one bright side, that building is newer than any other building the city owns, right? Other than the wastewater, yeah.
The HVAC system is 5 years old. Just looking to see if I have anything.
But it'd be interesting to see what the utilities, what age they were.
Utility?
The furnace and the AC unit and then to find out if we start remodeling in there, if we gotta put in a whole, air exchanging system. And then what we would put in there, how big it has to be and how it's had a funnel from room to room to room. That's all. Did you figure on kind of that a little bit, Chuck?
It was based on like that typical type cost. I mean, obviously, every situation is a little unique, but when I talked to the architect, he sort of tried to base it on what he thought the cost would be given.
So all the new codes that they throw in at everybody should be good?
Yeah, that's what he would figure in. But like I said, that's a ballpark cost estimate, If you were to proceed forward, you'd want to get into it much.
Yeah.
I just know they get really expensive when you gotta, the other thing you gotta figure out if you're gonna start putting different buildings in there is how many different thermostats that air conditioning system can run, or you gotta add different air conditioning systems for each unit to keep the temperature from side to side to side.
Yeah.
I ran into that problem with my building, so that's the only reason I know.
Be an awful lot of plumbing and electric to redo too.
Well, that's all in there, because they're gonna have to put all these bathrooms in there and bust all that cement and that tiling out of that floor to run it across. I think the bathrooms are all on one side, right, Chuck?
They're all on the north
Hey,
side.
They're all the way across the building?
Yeah, one corner.
Do we have a figure if we wanted to move everything in there tomorrow? Not tomorrow, but starting.
We'll get through the weekend first.
Yeah,
Just things that,
You got the building, you got 600 and some there, remodeling for City Hall, remodeling for library.
I believe the purchase price of the building was $550,000. That's what they came up to us.
Right.
The library, remodeling 5,000 square feet of the Shopko building for the library space is $500,000. The liquor store is $600,000. City Hall, remodeling 5,000 square feet of the Shopko building for City Hall is $500,000.
so I think at the end of the game was 2.2.
So over here, scenario one, moving library, liquor store, City Hall to Shopko building, including the purchase of the Shopko building at $550,000 and the parking lot repairs of $50,000 was exactly what Len said, 2.2.
Now, wasn't there, not that I'm for the Shopko building, because I'm not at this time, but isn't there something, if we put the library in there, they'll give us money?
Well,
That's-
the offer was.
well, that was not to us, that was to a Friends of the Library. And I've had this discussion with Leo too, is that made a difference, is that, there is no Friends of the Library group.
Right.
I think there is now.
Well, there is,
Over the last
yeah.
week.
Yeah, there is, but,
Is that money could be used, well, with it just all talking, I don't really care, until it's written down, it cannot be used for some other remodeling of the library?
that would have, if we do any more negotiation, that would have to be part of that,
Right.
that discussion.
Or is it for ongoing?
There could be a grant for the library portion.
There's that possibility too, but, quite honestly, and I know this is gonna get back to Leo, but for a Friends of the Library group to spend $200,000 when it's part of the Great River system that's already, doing some of the programming and that, our responsibility is, providing the building and the utilities. They provide the staff and the programming, so.
I
That's why
believe
we didn't know
that
where that money went.
200,000 was contingent on the library moving there, and I think was supposed to be used for
The remodel.
the remodel.
That's not what I had understood. It was gonna go to the Friends of the Library, and they have nothing to do with remodeling.
No, because the Friends of the Library would be the nonprofit organization that all of the donations and grants would be run through in order to do the remodeling of the library.
I think that picture showed that 200,000 going toward
So
the,
that'd have to be written down somewhere.
Any idea what we could get for this
So-
building and the library?
Belinda's got it here.
Okay, so this is a picture I took when we were out there that they revealed their plan to us
whiteboard.
on a whiteboard. And this could be contingent on the fact that we didn't take that sale on May 15th. But number 2 bullet point said library. $200,000 gift is contingent on shop location. And then 2 little bullet points are $100,000 would be paid at construction's onset and $100,000 would be paid at construction's completion.
And it was 250,000, because he said,
200,000.
no, but then at 550, they give 200,000, and the liquor store could pay $50,000 for 5 years, and that place would be paid off. That was in their selling point, is that correct?
The bullet point number 1 was a 5-year contract for deed.
Yeah.
50,000 down, 50,000 for years 1 through 5, equaling the 250, and 250 upon completion of that 5-year lease would be 250, totaling your 550,000.
And what did we figure right now? You're paying 30,000 a year in rent, approximately?
22.
This is 18 a month, right?
Yeah,
It's almost, is it almost 1,900, is it 18?
1828 a month. I had that on Neil's sheet.
21,900.
Yeah. So we'd be more than doubling the cost of hosting the liquor store.
But we could more than double the space.
And I suppose by putting it next to the DMV, that would increase revenue as people leave the DMV.
Irritated.
Yeah.
Then we need to,
Yeah, and the concerns about the library and the liquor store,
Well-
you can do things with entrances too.
Yeah.
Oh, you'd have to.
We do have the building money or capital improvement or what, could that not be applied?
Yep.
I mean, that could be used for the down payment, like that 50,000, if that.
we've paid 200,000 to be at Rogers, be at Teal's for the last 10 years.
Right.
Just right at 200,000. 203, 208 to be exact.
How much is in the capital improvement?
The capital improvement fund, this is as of March 31st, sorry, I didn't print a newer one. The capital improvement fund had a balance of 234,000.
So that would more than cover the 50,000.
And I know there's do you do $14,000 transfer that would have just happened to
You know.
add that to it, and just interest last couple months is, so it's probably 245,000. 247. And his working fund had 226 as of the end of March. Was operating fund.
Do we have any ideas on value of these buildings? And I know what tax value and real value are two different things.
Your value is only what somebody pays you for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the value
I don't
right
care.
around $648, the tax value.
Yeah.
On this one?
648.9 and on library 238.7.
No.
238.7 for the library?
Yep.
Great, that's a nice one. That's
I
probably,
think we should have been.
Bill, help me out here, 100, 120?
Yeah, maybe.
To the assessment.
You know?
I mean, really, if the
It's-
accounting business,
This building,
we should have.
600, not a chance, not a freaking chance.
Oh, what's that
That's
based?
somebody pays you for it. Yeah. Like I said,
$600,000 building.
it's only what,
It's based on rebuilding it. What it would cost you tomorrow to rebuild it, that's what it's based on.
Yeah, you're not gonna build it for 600,000,
No,
but you're not gonna get 600.
but you'd be very lucky to get 3. Very. Library probably 150.
So I personally would be of the opinion that we should send this back to property negotiations and maybe they could work out a little bit more of a negotiation.
you're in that committee, I guess.
Yeah, and Neil.
The Sean Committee.
Well, are we interested in buying it for 354?
I mean, the
What
other,
are our figures, what's our guidelines?
are we supposed to do that in a closed session?
Before I'd even think about it, you'd have to tell me what's going on with that 200,000 on paper.
Which 200,000?
The 200,000 that apparently might go to the Friends of.
Oh, that, yeah, that one.
Over
Yeah.
here, or apparently, or just don't even say it.
That would have to be.
One or the other, you know.
fully understood. You know, I'd trade the buildings, I don't know. you know.
I was just thinking, let's give them City Hall of
I,
Fame.
on the way out, and that was after we had talked, Leo still wanted to talk,
Yeah.
and half of what he says goes in one ear and out the other, but I finally came back and I said, Leo, why don't we just trade buildings, even up? And he said, well, we could talk.
Yeah.
He did not say no. Now, I don't know, sometimes he gives me answers like I.
You could trade the building, it's still gonna cost you 1.5 million more dollars. It's 2.2. You trade them even up, you're still out $1.5 million.
Well, I guess, you know, the question is, are we interested in reopening up negotiation?
I would be interested in that.
I know that, you know, council had decided to move forward, but I'm, you know, looking at how busy we've been here, you know, and how cramped for space, we don't know if our reputation is going to spread. You know, from the reports I've heard, we've got a pretty good reputation of customer service here, so,
Well, and sooner or later, we gotta do something with liquor, one way or another.
yeah.
I mean, I didn't.
And
realize
library.
It was as big a concern as what it is.
Yeah. And library.
I still don't think,
think. No matter what we do with liquor, it's gonna be an expenditure, whichever way we go.
I think we should
Whether
leave it
this
alone
building
until
is
after
correct or the
COVID.
next one down the road.
We don't know when that's going to be, and we don't know what's going to, yeah, but we're going to be talking about, you know, well,
Yep, and if we have to wait 6 months, I guess it wouldn't bother me because we don't know what's going on. And we don't know how much it's gonna affect us yet.
it may affect us positively.
What's that?
When's your lease up?
April.
April, yeah. You know, I think we're sitting in a pretty good place here geographically that, you know, we could come out of this building fairly good. But that's just my opinion.
For what, Jeff, I didn't catch.
Well, you know, looking at selling lots out in the, you know, in Heatherwood Plat 2 and the way other, 3? Heatherwood Plat 3, okay. Whatever, you know, and as fast as homes turn here, you know, I'm kind of expecting somewhat of a boom. And, you know, they got the apartment building that's adding on there now, and, you know, I'm expecting that we're gonna be, you know, got the corner turned here, and they're got a fairly good outlook ahead of us.
I agree with you, and I think that I mean, I understand using caution, but I think that it could be really easy to be short-sighted and miss out on a great opportunity that would also be a wise investment for our community in the long run.
Yeah. I'm in favor of renegotiating. Bottom line, just not beating around the bush.
So I don't know I don't know if property negotiations would be the place, or if we call a closed session and invite the Steel Turkey representatives to.
We can sit down and negotiate in a closed session?
Well, you can decide on a counteroffer in a closed session. I mean,
Okay.
You can, you know, I mean, you had an offer, and you, as a council, you can meet in a closed session to determine, but once you decide what your counteroffer is gonna be, you have to say that you're authorizing this offer to go out. I mean, you know, so that's, I mean,
Okay.
but you can have a closed session of the council to determine a counteroffer.
With representatives of the other side here, and then ask them.
I wouldn't think that would be the way you would do it, no.
No, but I mean, that, you know, if we're going to, you know, to have them face-to-face to ask questions, go back into closed session, or however to do that, and then go back into closed session where we can discuss what we want to, you know, counter with. You know, similar to like we did the other night, you know, they weren't here, we called on the phone and made our
Sure.
counter
If
proposal.
they could be here, then when we could ask them to leave when we want to talk and then invite them.
Go in and out of
Could you?
open and closed session.
Union negotiations.
Kind of cumbersome, but
Yeah.
It could be done that way.
get the job done.
I mean, at least then if they were here face to face, the questions could be answered and everything could be laid out.
Basically, wouldn't you have to have a written out agreement from them, what they're going to do, what they're planning on doing for some of our questions though, Bill? Or you just go word of mouth?
Well, I mean, it's gonna have to get reduced to writing at some
Yeah,
point. I mean,
yeah.
but, I think if they say that that's what they're willing to do, then you put it in your written counteroffer that that's the way it is. I mean, I think you'd wanna reduce it to a written offer, but it could be done verbally that night, but it obviously has to get reduced to a writing that everybody's willing to sign.
Right, the thing is, we got so many moving parts here that come into play, whether or not it's a, outright purchase or contract for need or lease to rent or trading property or whatever,
Well, part of it is,
yeah.
part of it is you gotta decide what you want to do, and then find out if they're willing. I mean, that's, I think you can't say, well, you can't go into this with 6 different ideas. I think that's part of the reason you have a closed session is to decide how are we, if we're gonna make this work, what makes sense for the city? And then you can talk to them, but I think you gotta figure out what you.
Do you think we should go in a closed session, decide what we want to do at the next council meeting, and then do the offer after that for the next council meeting? Kinda, so we know what we want?
I feel like, we have a lot of voices here and they're not all the same. And I think you need to come to a consensus on something you could all vote for, and that you're willing to make as an offer to them. And I think then you make that offer. And, but if you know what your offer is, you can kind of put it in writing, at least as much as they did their offer to you. And then it's in their court and they can decide.
No, one thing we haven't addressed is the police.
We've only got so many square feet.
Yeah,
I know, but
yeah,
let's say that they're willing to do the building exchange. Well, then is the police department gonna rent from them?
They can do that.
It's another cog in the wheel.
well, that's the way it was left previously, that if, City Hall was to move out there, it would not be cost efficient to move the police department out there.
Especially for Bill.
Yeah,
We were there this weekend, nobody came in when we were there.
oh,
No.
They came in after though.
No, at one time we
They
talked
came in
about
after, but
doing construction and blocking out that entrance, going that way and just making it a sealed entrance and using this front door as a front door.
no, yeah.
That would be the easiest.
No, this is a functional building for, an accountant or professional type of a setup, not necessarily a city hall or a library. But is the negotiating team willing to spend some time on this?
I would be, but I think it would be a better use if the whole council were together. I think we have too many voices for just 2 of us to sit down and figure it out. But, if you want to hear from us first, we can.
I guess we could meet with them and ask them what absolutely positively is your bottom dollar.
Yeah.
That's a starting.
But we kind of did at the last meeting.
Well, but now he said we'll want to negotiate.
Well, I think
But I
we've
think
kind of
more
gone off from a no, that it was fruitless to even counter, to now that we're willing to counter or to relook at it. When we left that council meeting, and I had the feeling that it was, fruitless to even go back with any kind of a counter offer.
My experience with negotiations is that it's a fool's errand to ask somebody what their bottom line is.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a really good idea in terms of negotiation. I think you decide where you want to be and you make that as your counteroffer. You don't worry about whether that's going to be acceptable to them. That's the last thing I would worry about.
But we do need to find out from them what the 200, what the 200,000 is.
Well, I think you can make a counteroffer and just say what the 200,000
Okay.
is in your view, and, and if they don't like it,
Yeah.
then they're gonna make the counterproposal
Okay.
to you. I mean, I think that's the way that should work. I mean, I honestly don't know why they thought that they had to make that donation to Friends of the Library Board as opposed to making a donation to the city. I'm not sure where the money's coming from. I think a donation to a city is ordinarily tax deductible. I'm not an accountant, but I believe that to be true. So I don't know what the right reasoning was for that, but, I mean, if you're worried about losing control of the money because some board has it as opposed to you, then my counteroffer would be the donation comes to the city. And then they can explain why that doesn't work for them, I guess, but.
I think it went to the Friends of the library, that way they would spend it, the city couldn't misuse it.
And on this original offer, it does not directly say it goes to the Friends of the Library, but I believe that was
That was part of the discussion afterwards, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know what the rationale was. Maybe there's a perfectly good reason why they thought it should go that way, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And if you think it would be, if you would rather be in direct control of those dollars and just see it as, that maybe an accountant told them, if you're doing this transaction, it's just gonna seem fake if you're just donating money back. And maybe that's true. I don't know.
No, I would figure that, there's stigma of the right word, but, connotations with donating money to a library, which is probably up here, as to donating money to a city, which is probably down here. Tax-wise, we're both 501c3 qualified. So that's not an issue tax-wise, but, one thing I would want is that whatever that donation is, that there are no strings. It can be said it goes to the library, because basically it's kind of a deal breaker that without that donation, I don't see us doing this at all.
Never know, he might be willing to give 300,000 rather than lower his price on the bill.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
or skip the.
Well, I think it's one individual that's got the donation, but it's not the investors, so, yeah. Yeah,
But yeah, I think we need a closed session and we need to just develop a counter.
okay.
So if we don't do Shopko, what's their next option for the liquor store?
To
Buy less?
rent from them, right, though?
We don't have a choice.
I mean, they offered to rent a portion of that building to the liquor store, right?
Yeah,
And we still have build-out costs.
we still have to build out, and then we'd
Right.
we'd be looking at $4,500 to $5,000 a month in rent. That's a chunk to swallow.
Yeah.
And our building fund, we don't want to use for rent.
I would not think so.
Mm-hmm.
We'd probably need to use it for our 600.
Yeah.
It's not an easy,
There's a lot of pieces.
Well, we will see if they can, do we want to counter or, well, I think there's some questions we have to get answered first. About, or if our counter would be that,
Well, I think we can put that in the counter. We can draft that as part of our counter offer.
that the 200,000 is, if that, I guess that would be up to them to accept that if it's, the 200 is still there for the donation, that it's no strings attached. It would be designated as library, but basically would help make the deal.
I won't even talk to him until we find out what kind of roof that thing has on. I know what kind of roof, it's gonna be rubber roof, but unless we find out how good that roof is, because then you're gonna bounce yourself, I don't know, 120,000 for a new roof, Chuck?
Who was there that day? Mike Mike Arnold was there, I think,
Yeah,
and he went up and looked at the roof.
they found one spot.
They found one, they had some condensation issues.
Yeah.
That's in one spot, from what I recall. Which would be insulation, right? Not roof. Okay, well, we will set a special closed session to come to a counter. I'll give Leo a call and warn him. Okay, anything else on that? Mobile home park.
Okay, we did have a individual over in the industrial park who indicated he is going to be in need of property in 2, 3, maybe 5 years, and indicated that he was looking at the trailer court and very likely would need a partner. And we would be looking at the city to help him out. We did contact Bill a little bit about getting involved in this type of purchase, and also League of Minnesota Cities, and they pretty much said that we should stay away from it until the residents have all relocated.
Red, didn't Wilmer run into that where they had to relocate everybody to suitable housing what they came from when they just closed that one down a few years ago?
Correct.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
They got pretty ugly.
So we talked a little bit about it at property negotiations, and I sort of floated the idea of, instead of paying to relocate individuals, is there a way to incentivize to move, to improve living conditions and free up that area? So I talked to Ron and Chuck. We thought developing the plot of land just west of the new funeral home over by the airport would be about $500,000 or $600,000. And Chuck's been looking at grants. I understand there are some available, but I don't know the details of it. So we might be able to get some grants to develop that. There are 23-ish homes over there now. One of the things that was floated with the housing study was if the city would pay for, just pick a flat rate, buy the current trailers from the individuals regardless of condition, and they can use those funds on like a new down payment for a new home. If we did $7,500 at 23 trailers, we're looking at $172,500. There's funds in EDAP that could pay for that because we'd be freeing up that area for the economic development of the industrial park. And I don't know what the going rate is on the lots over there now, but if it's $350 a month, that would net in a new mobile home park $96,600 a year. And the debt service, if we had to pay $600,000 at about $15,000 per 100,000 bonded, is $90,000 a year. So the city would be doing a little bit better than breaking even if everyone who's currently renting moved to a new park. The benefit would then be the city is in control, would have standards in place, probably paved roads, nice landscaping. The quality of the homes would be improved, quality of living better for those people. And then if we were to sell the property, I would think then, since we don't want to be in the business of landlording perhaps, that we could discuss some covenants to run with that as far as ongoing maintenance and things.
We'll start a complete new trailer park?
Yeah.
So, which,
Mobile home park. Mobile home.
We brought up Melrose has a beautiful park on the other side of the high school.
Oh, there's some nice ones. St. Cloud has some really nice ones.
And all there's, trailer parks don't have to be trashy.
Mobile home parks.
oh, yeah, what chunk of land over there are you talking about? Like, in that cul-de-sac where
Further down,
or further down on the other side?
further west.
I guess that's just one that was thrown out, and
Yeah.
we can identify a number of different spots where we think it might work if this is something we want to pursue.
That was just where I thought, right across from the airport driveway and across from the new funeral home.
Okay.
It's a good flat parcel of land that could be easily developed, I would think.
Well, in relation to our housing study, which has shown that we can use any type of housing that we can get. It, to that extent, makes some sense financially. Sounds like it relatively painless.
Yeah. Well, and I found it rather disturbing, the number of homes over there that were in nearly condemnable condition.
Yeah.
They don't own them. Most of those homes over there aren't owned by the individuals. They're renting them. They're got a C4D on them.
Wasn't there some kind of issue with a lot of them aren't titled? And so people were purchasing them, but they weren't getting a
The
title for
previous
them.
owner, not the one that is there now, the previous owner was selling them to the residents without titles to them, and they were titled trailers, so they couldn't get them in their names. And they were, trying to take them, they were trying to go to court, but they didn't have court monies to be able to fight them. Yeah, it was pretty awful.
Yeah, I think he just keeps on swapping them as the people leave. Furnace breaks down, so they move out. And Billy comes in and he builds it. He lives in there for a while. Then that goes heck, so he leaves, which is just a transformation. So you're paying $300 lot rent, $250 for your trailer payment because there's no down payment really, and it's been a nasty cycle there forever. That's why you got the houses you got.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been, management has been the major issue over there.
And most of the people are really good people. They would probably love the idea of moving into someplace that was decent. Because we already had to have them clean up their storm shelter once, didn't we?
Good.
Anyway, I don't know, it might be more housing we can get for people as long as if we build a mobile home park, it's big enough that we can add another 10 for it. And if you had it updated and, because there's beautiful parks out there that people care. It's just that this one, not so much for the last, we just sold again, right? Year ago?
Well, it's probably
It's
been longer than that.
been, I think, a few years, couple years anyway, 2, 3, 4 years.
It's the same guy that owns the Black Saucer.
I don't think so. Is it?
I believe it was the same,
He bought both.
Was he the,
at different timelines.
Because they're out of.
was he the one we were negotiating with when we were trying to put the pond out there?
So,
I think it's changed hands again. One or the other. I
But-
think
It's not the guy from North Dakota anymore,
it's a cool concept,
but I believe it's in points.
as long as I wouldn't go into partners with anybody, but if we did that and then sold the lots back to him, I don't think that the city's not the right spot to be a partner with any business owner.
Right.
I don't.
Want to get into the housing business? Property management, yeah. I'm interested in taking a look, seeing where there's space for something like that with adequate services or to be annexed.
All right.
Or might we just take the Shopko building and make a whole bunch of apartments in there?
Yeah.
I think it's, definitely, I would agree too. Something we should take a look at more seriously.
All right.
Okay. Then we have just Ron and Belinda, or mostly Ron, putting together stuff here for.
Ron did all that.
Ron did all that. Looking at city-owned property in other entities.
From our last meeting, we had talked about the joint annexation board. I guess we did not bring anything up there about annexing in our city property. But as you can see the layout here, I got all our property identified, the market value, total taxes, county and township, which would be the column that, which if we did annex them in, that's what we would receive, school and then the other. And then there's 3 of these properties that are out in Zion Township. And then on the bottom, I do have the township properties that are within the city limits. And I guess the one thing I did not put on there under the bottom one, we're on Main Street currently, there is about 8,000, or correct me, Belinda, the assessments on that. I don't know if you know that, but currently we're not collecting any of that. And the previous project that was done there in 1991, we never collected a nickel on that. So the city ate those costs.
And many.
For what, Ron?
Oh, there.
It was the, currently, I believe right where, it was Ampe's property and where Jerry Mares is now, and what the city currently owns, that whole section was not within the city. We never collected on any of those assessments.
Now,
So I don't know if we want to use this just as a negotiating tool, or if we want to actually go out and seriously annex it. I mean, I guess that's the council's decision.
isn't there 2 properties over here on the other side of AMPI that are in township, not one?
I believe that's the second one down here.
Yep, and there should be one more, right? Or is that one in the city? That's right beside Bill's property.
That's in the city.
That one is?
Yes.
Really?
About, 10 years ago.
Oh,
She wanted to hook up the water and sewer, so.
okay. I just knew there was 2 over there and I was like going,
No, there's just
Right.
one left.
No, it looks like 4 pieces of property are in Zion.
Yep, 3.
3?
Yep.
okay.
Well, that are not tax exempt.
Yeah.
Well, now, why is 17, one is tax exempt?
Pivot.
On pivot 17, that's gonna take a little bit of investigation because I seen that also. I don't know if that goes back to when we initially bought it, that it was tax exempt for the purpose that we were using it. And they never requested it be reverted, but the Zion portion was. Sometimes you just don't want to rock the boat.
No.
Yeah.
That was that portion.
Well, I personally would still, I'd like to see all our properties be city. And I'm sure they aren't gonna, I guess, willing to do what our annexation over the 5-year period and play that game, I guess.
I think if the city owns the property, it should be in the city. I mean, we should
Oh,
annex it into the
We
city, we
own.
own it.
okay.
Yeah, that's.
Because we're the property owner, and we can
Yeah.
address that.
Yep, all we have to do is to petition for annexation.
It seems kind of silly to pay some other township for the property that the city owns.
And in the meantime, I think the 4 on the bottom, we need to keep more pressure to annex. But if they don't want services, it's kind of tough, I guess.
Well, the thing about the ones at the bottom is that, we are providing some services. Not sewer and water, but
Curb.
driving on our streets and curb and gutter if they have them,
And we can't assess them even though they got curb and gutter from us? Is that correct? We can't assess township property if they're getting curb and gutter from us? Like we do every other business in town? And every other individual in town gets charged per foot on curb. But it's in,
They're not in our taxing authority, I mean,
Yep.
we can't tax them.
I think some of them were deferred until they are annexed in, then we can charge them.
right.
The one point I think we should make before we jump on that, is do we negotiate the cost of maintenance and repair, especially out, if you go up 293rd, if you're looking at the map, we would own that road on both sides. So technically that likely would become a city street there. So I don't know, Bill, how would you handle that, or what would we?
I mean, you know, it's the same scenario though, I mean, I think it's not a city street, I mean, unless the township would abandon it, I mean, they're not gonna abandon it.
Oh, yeah.
Even though we would own the
Oh,
property on
yeah,
both
well,
sides?
But we take care of the streets. They own the property in Eamesville.
The township has property owners. Here, we literally, as the city, would own both sides.
Yeah, it's like Bill says, it's still a township
I
road.
don't think that we have anything to do with it, it's still their road, anyway. Unless they abandon the road, then it probably would go back to us, because we have the property on both sides, but they got people that need to go north, south, east, west, they're not gonna abandon roads, I'm not too worried about that.
All right.
I'm more worried about, you know, just being really unhappy with the idea of annexing it, but I don't think it's gonna affect roads.
But I'm still of the opinion that maybe just the threat would be enough to reopen that orderly annexation.
That was kind of my thinking too, is
Yeah.
that if we threaten or, you know, start saying that we're gonna be annexing these properties because, you know, they're ours, see how far that goes is to reopening that orderly annexation agreement.
But I think the question is, do we want to have that discussion at a property negotiations meeting? Or, not property, the joint planning meeting?
The joint planning meeting would be the place for that.
Or a joint meeting of the council and the township board?
I would start with the joint planning board, because that's where the orderly annexation agreement basically came through.
Did anybody show up to your meeting last week?
Nope, just the members. That's a thrilling board that I think you should be gearing up to get into.
You got an audience for your planning meeting.
Well, sorry, Ron, it was more than an hour. Anything else?
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Over. Just wanted to give you guys a quick update. So I talked with Yarman Ford, I met with them last week about the movie night. Just so you know, because of the potential parking issues that we may have, we are actually going to be posting no parking in that area. Temporary no parking for that event on Lake Avenue.
On Lake Avenue, okay.
That way we've got a clear sight lines as people are leaving and everything else, instead of having a bunch of people park on the streets and then potentially run into some issues with pedestrian traffic and motor vehicle traffic. So when we talked with them, they said they had about 1,000 people that had shown interest, at least as far as Facebook. So a little concerned about what that size is going to look like for the event.
Well, you're supposed to go on Eventbrite and get tickets, aren't you?
Probably.
I think so.
We thought that they were gonna give out like 200 and some tickets, and that was gonna be the
Oh,
crowd.
okay.
To keep the crowd.
Yeah.
That's the way I understood it. I think that's what Jen understood too, isn't it?
I don't know anything about tickets, but
Mm.
we told them that they had to be under the governor's executive orders to comply with the COVID. So under 250, plus they didn't get a large assembly permit because they said they were gonna be under that amount.
Just as long as the screen is facing west, so I can watch from my backyard.
Oh.
So you'll be.
There you go. The RV pump station, when's that gonna be, or the entrance? Tomorrow, okay. 'Cause I see it's been busy already, people have been,
Yes, they're still getting in there.
yeah, they're making a loop on the grass there, so it'd be nice to get that.
I guess just one other thing, Tuesday, I believe they will be in town seal court.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, thanks, everybody.